Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's edition of the afternoon edition. And the afternoon edition, just like you know, is a major current affairs program looking at issues within the country and then with specificity also in the FCT. And today we shall be focusing more on the issue of qualified teachers in the FCT. And you know, in the heart of Nigeria, Abuja stands as a symbol of progress and promise with its own towering skyscrapers and the rest. Definitely there are so much that one needs to look into, mostly when it comes to the issue of education. So in the sprawling neighborhood and bustling communities in Abuja, schools stand as a beacon of hope and offering pathways to knowledge and opportunity. However, behind the classrooms, does a stark reality unfolds. The shortage of qualified teachers looms large, that's casting a shadow over the educational system and depriving students of the quality instruction they deserve. So one of the most pressing challenges stemming from the death of qualified teachers is the erosion of educational standard. With classrooms overcrowded and resources stretched thin, teachers struggle to meet the diverse needs of their students. So the absence of skilled instructors exacerbates this issue, leaving many children without the guidance and support necessary for their academic development. So moreover, the shortage of qualified teachers perpetuates disparities in educational attainment, disproportionately impacting marginalized communities in undeserving areas of the Federal Capital Territory. Where resources are scarce and opportunities limited, the absence of experienced educators widens the gap between the privileged and disadvantaged students. As a result, many children are denied access to quality education, perpetuating cycles of poverty and inequality. The repercussions of the teacher shortage extend far beyond the confines of the classroom. So in a rapidly evolving global economy where knowledge is the currency of success, the inability to provide adequate education hampers Abuja's competitiveness on the world stage. Without a well-educated workforce equipped with the skills and knowledge necessary for the challenges of the 21st century, the city risks falling behind in the race for progress and prosperity. So today we'll be discussing these particular issues, most especially as it concerns the communities within the FCT, with Mr. Johnson Ogbanje. Mr. Johnson Ogbanje is a major educator in the FCT, and he has been to some of these nooks and crannies trying to get more information on why we are having this particular challenge. So we'll go on a very short break, and when we return, we start up with a conversation.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be wielded by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite. This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, Star Times Terrestrial Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, People's TV Channel 285, and
the welfare of millions of people for generations to come may be affected by the wisdom which we here display. If Nigerian leaders and our British partners are to prove themselves worthy of their trust, now is the time for us solemnly and truly to dedicate ourselves to seeking the greatest good of the greatest number of our people in Nigeria. Independence for Nigeria in 1960 is imperative. But independence for Nigeria as a corporate entity is not enough. The peoples of Nigeria must at the same time be guaranteed their freedom. We must ensure that in an independent Nigeria, individual citizens throughout the land enjoy liberty, human dignity, and equality under the law. There must be one Nigeria with one constitution and one law for all. Let us therefore, Mr. Chairman, sir, close our ears to the counsel of despair, which says that we cannot here at this conference agree on a constitution. If there's any doubt among us as to what should be written into the constitution, let us, as Democrats that we profess ourselves to be, refer such problems, as the goal has done recently, to the people whom we profess to represent, either just before or at the federal elections late in 1959.
Hello, welcome back from that break. And just before the break, I did inform you that we'll be focusing more on the issues surrounding community education and how can we get the teachers back to this community for them to fill in the gaps. Because in this present world that we have now, you need education to really leverage you and for you to be able to achieve so much. You just have, once you have education, you've been able to cover so much. So, Mr. Johnson, good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon edition.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's nice that we are having you this afternoon because of the present situation we are finding ourselves. Things are getting a bit tough for everyone in the country today, but then still we won't lose our faith that yes, it will be better. But then when it comes to the issue of education, it is very, very pertinent that at this particular point in time we also know the level we have in respect to the FCT. And what's your take generally about the issues that is surrounding the types or the kinds of teachers that we have in the FCT?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me once again, and then thank you for this very important question. You see, part of the things that has bothered me for some time now is the fact that we constantly have people in the classroom who are not seeing education as what they want to do. You see, one of the major concerns that we have in the educational system is that we have a lot of teachers who are teaching and who are doing what they are doing, not necessarily as a passion or for something they really want to do, but then just as a means of, as a way of making ends meet, basically. So I think one of the major concerns we have is that we do not have qualified teachers, people who are passionate about education in the classroom. And this for me is the major concern I see that that we are having generally.
Okay, now you've raised a very important question, and I know that we have the Teachers Registration Council here in the FCT. Their national headquarters, I think, is based here in the FCT. Do you think they've done enough to see that, yes, we have qualified teachers in most of the schools, be it the primary and the secondary school?
Well, they are doing their best, right? They are doing their best, but then I still feel that enforcement is not so effective, especially when you begin to look at private institutions and private organizations, right? Many of the people in the private sector are finding their way around getting incompetent and unqualified teachers in the classroom, right? So you can see it from the kind of students that they are producing, the kind of learners that are coming out of the classroom. You can see the level of the kind of teachers basically that has been grooming them. So the TRCN are doing their best. We can see that, but I'm not seeing how the enforcement of the enforcement to ensure that we have competent teachers in the classroom. I'm not seeing the enforcement being played out. I'm not seeing the enforcement being played out. You can go around the state and you still see that most of the teachers in the classroom are not qualified, are not competent, right? And then they are still given the opportunity to raise another mind. I feel that there's still a wide gap between policy and enforcement, especially even in the FCT.
Okay, moving forward, what do you think now is the major problem? Because now, even if we are to look at what you've stated, we know in the FCT we have the public and the private school. Can you streamline it? Which of them do you think is not having adequate teachers or qualified teachers?
Well, you find out mostly in the public school system around here. You see, the private sector, the private schools, even within the state, usually are looking out for people that can help them remain in business. So you constantly see that the private sector are doing their best to enforce, to an extent, the kind of teachers that they are having in the classroom. Just to please our minds a little, there's still a wide gap, right, between competence and qualifications. This is another discussion entirely. You can still find people who are qualified, right, having the necessary certifications, but then they are still not competent and should not be in the classroom. You can still see that the ethics are still not maintained in the classroom. You can still see that people who are not specialized are still teaching in the classroom. So I see that in the public sector, there's still a wide gap. There's a wider gap in the public sector as compared to the private sector. And then one of the concerns there is that we do not have sufficient teachers in the classroom. We have a shortage of competent teachers, not just in the FCT, even across the nation, right? We have a shortage of competent teachers. And then people are running away from education. So we're having a very wide gap between people who are competent and comfortable with teaching and those who are certified and are willing to teach. So there's a wide gap there.
Okay, how do you think this particular shortage of qualified teachers impact our educational standard in the FCT?
Okay, well, the shortage of these qualified teachers, especially in the remote regions. Remember the last time we were together, we were talking about the SDG 4 and then commemorating the World Teachers Day and all of that. Now, one of the things that we spoke about, right? We're looking at the SDG 4, the Sustainable Development Goals that has been set up and how it has not been met so far. Now, how it has not been met so far. So if you look at the remote regions within the state, right, you can still see that there's still a wide gap of teachers, lack of available hands. So teachers that are not competent and qualified, we have very few teachers who are competent and qualified teaching in the classroom. So we end up having people who are not who are teaching because they want to make ends meet. And the part of the things that you can see there is that you have a wide number of student to teacher ratio in the classroom. So you have more students. Of course, from our discussion the last time, you can tell categorically that the number of uneducated teachers, the number of uneducated students, right, are more in the remote regions. You will find them more in the remote regions, right? So rural areas are having more educated people in school, but the out of school rate is higher in the remote regions. And now you find out that in such regions, one of the major concerns you have there is that you have more teacher to student ratio. I remember one of my colleagues was posted to a public school here in Abuja to teach, and then one of the things that she mentioned to me was that she was teaching. She's a single teacher in a classroom of over 120 students in that class. Now, how effective can you have that kind of lessons with people making noise here and there, with the class already out of control, and all of those things? So you have high rate of teacher to student ratio will be higher, and then the effectiveness will be very poor. This is one of the major concerns that we can see when we do not have sufficient hands in the educational sector, especially in the remote regions.
Okay, now that we've also taken it down to where I was expecting, which was the issue of the remote areas and the rest. If you observe carefully, you understand that FCT has about 6 area council, and you have the Abaji, we have the Amak, we have the Buhari area council, we have the Kuje, and then we have that of the Gwagwalada. When you look at this area council, apart from the Amak and probably maybe the Buhari, where do you think the government need to put more pressure to see that, yes, they have sufficient teachers, they have sufficient educational facilities, including materials for teachers to aid teachers' ability to be able to teach effectively?
Well, categorically, regions in Gwagwalada, they suffer more, especially in the FCT, when it comes to having we don't have lots of competent hands, and where they need more support, right? So it would be a great delight if the attention of the government is drawn to such regions. These regions will need more support. They'll need more teacher training programs being carried out there, so that even the number of people we have in the classroom can still be encouraged. They can still be trained and equipped to deliver more. So I feel regions in the Gwagwalada and the likes have gone to places in Karimo region way deep inside there, and I could see the gap, right? We can still see that this is really, if you video regions around there, you'll be surprised that this is still in the Federal Capital Territory, right? This is the capital of the nation. We're expecting to see a lot of difference, right? In regions like that, there shouldn't be a wide gap between the educated and uneducated, especially in this part of the nation.
Okay, do you really see a major change? Because you've said that, okay, government should put effort in these other areas, but do you really see a major change with respect to, just like you see people coming into the Federal Capital Territory from neighboring states, even from states that are a bit further from the FCT? Do you see the possibility of people leaving those rural communities, primary and secondary school, and coming into the city center and then stress the facilities that we have?
Yeah, that I was discussing that a couple of days ago when we had a number of people coming for the program that happened here in the FCT some time back, I think last week. And then part of the concerns, we were able to see that there was a lot of pressure mounted on the resources of the state. We could see that a lot of things suffer that very day because of the number of people that troop into the community. Now, um, of a truth, lots of people are moving into the FCT, looking for better opportunities, and then we have people who believe that they can make ends meet here, and really they are mounting pressure on the economy of the state, right? And all of that. But nonetheless, the number of if systems are put in place, right? If we have proper systems put in place, I don't see it being so much of a challenge if we have proper systems and structures put in place. There could be allocations, there could be categorizations that can be done in the state to ensure that the pressure is not mounted on one part of the state alone. And people can be decimated to various regions in the state so that there can be a widespread or distribution of the resources across the state.
Okay, moving forward now, what do you think will be the broader repercussion of the teacher shortage beyond the classroom?
One of the things that we expect will be happening going forward is that you'll be having many more teachers withdraw from the teaching space, and this will be a huge concern if such begins to happen, because you begin to have teachers who begin to look for greener pastures because they are not being supported. So if you have teachers who are not being supported, the limited hands we are having will still have more people leaving the educational sector. Why? Because they are not being motivated enough to remain there. So many people are currently, we have many teachers already in the space, and then they are already looking out for better opportunities, looking out for what to do better, and all of those things. And that can be a concern, right? So, one of the things we see is that we begin to have higher, wider shortage of teachers within, even in the states. Secondly, we will have this could also be a repercussion. You will have less specialized teachers handling subjects within the states too, right? Because you will agree with me that not all teachers can teach particular subjects. So, say a competent teacher in English language, for instance, and who is not being paid well, the remuneration is poor, and the compensation plan and all the supports very poor. You have such teachers moving out of the states looking for better opportunities and all that. So we will have a wide gap. So we'll have people who are now juggling subjects that are not their area of expertise. We also we should also expect, if nothing is being done, poor educational experience of our learners. So children will no longer enjoy the teaching experience anymore. You will agree with me that any learning that is not fulfilled, any learning that is not learner centered, we do not expect that children will thrive when they are not being taught in a way that is learner centered and that's fulfilled. Now, if we have a lot of pressure mounted on the teachers that are available so far, you see that many of the teaching experience, the learners' experience will be very poor. And then children will no longer find it fun to learn. So this is one of the concerns we should expect if something is not being done about the challenges we are having at the moment.
Okay, now looking at the state of schools that we have now in the FCT, and definitely one major concern that people have also raised over time is the cost of education in the FCT. Why is it so expensive, most especially for the private sector? And at the end of the day, you still see teachers complain that they are not well paid.
True, true.
Did you get the question?
Yes, teachers. Oh, I didn't get that.
Okay, I said if you look around within the FCT, you
Yeah.
discover that most of the private schools, so many teachers have been complaining that yes, despite the fact that they teach in some of these private schools where you see these fees are very high, you still see the issue of number one, unqualified teachers in some of them, and then number two, the teachers are not even well paid, not to talk of for them to deliver properly. And still, when you look at even the WAEC and then the NECO, for instance, their results data, you discover that that of the FCT seem not to be at the top. So what do you think are the major problem that is causing this particular challenge?
Okay, starting from the remuneration, the payment system of teachers um, in the state, even in the private sector, this has been discussed time and time again, and then we already are in consensus that there's really a wide gap between the between the teaching space and then other field of endeavors, right? We can see that our teachers are really not being well paid, as you mentioned, and something really needs to be done about it. I think one of the things that we can see that's a challenge, and this will go out to every educator out there and every teacher out there, is that there's not been so much value being placed on teachers. Reason being that, number one, we do not have teachers who are competent and know their worth. So one of the concerns I see there is that we do not have teachers who really know their worth and who are valuable enough. So one of the things that has to be worked on is the fact that teachers have to come out, teachers have to work on themselves well enough to worth any amount that is being paid them. So you see people can take any amount because there's no job in the society, because they are looking for well paid, they are looking for something to do, they are looking for something basically so that they can make ends meet. So the concerns we're having is a lot of people are trooping into the system and they are not valuable enough. They do not know their subject very well and they cannot produce results. So you have employers who now begin to demean the value of the teachers that are coming into that space. So that I see to be one of the major concerns that is plaguing the state. You mentioned something quite remarkable about the standard of the results that is being produced, even the students in the WAEC and NECO. And quite frankly, it's even degrading. It's even degrading because we have more learners now looking for magic centers and where they can be spoon fed or even provided with their answers, right? We have people in the states that have all the money and can pay whatever it is for their learners, for their children to have access to all of this. So malpractice is a major concern and is one of the decadence that the state is facing itself. So you have people who are in influential positions and who have a lot of money that can throw around and they can pick their way through for their learners. So we keep seeing that when these things continue to happen, of course, the standard of education will drop, and then you'll not have people who come out from the system doing so well. Even if they successfully graduate, you throw a question to an average graduate, you will not get any tangible, sizable response from them. So this, I believe, is a challenge that needs to be worked on.
You've raised issue also on the issue of the competency of our teachers, and if you look at the state of things now, and then you consider the role of the TRC, and that is Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, and the FCT branch here, and you also look at what the quality assurance units of some of the local council areas are doing. Do you think they've been able to meet up to expectation? Number one, in going to these schools, verifying the fact that yes, they have qualified teachers, and then number two, also seeing to the welfare of these particular teachers in the school, and number three, also seeing that yes, these teachers can take care of the subject that are resident in that particular school.
It's a wide no for me. It's a wide no for me. It's a wide no for me. It's obvious that this has not been met, and there's no the system for checkmating these things are not structurally in place. It's still a wide no for me. They are doing their best, but then I feel that more can be done, and then more units needs to be created in the TRCN and then in other enforcement agencies. Reason being that beyond a routine check, you see, one of the things that is being done is a routine check. They just go once in a while to just check what's going on. I feel that beyond that, we should be able to have more structures, right, be put in place to ensure that people go in more frequently to observe the teaching process that's going on in the system. Recruitment is happening basically literally every quarter. in most schools across the state. We have recruitment of teachers happening every quarter. So you cannot assume, you cannot go to a school once in a year or once in 8 to 10 months and then expect to get the best. So I've been in a couple of schools and I see that the routine check even in the school that I've been with was no more than once in a year. So with that kind of system, when you have most likely have circle teachers over and over again, you don't expect to get qualified and competent teachers in such environment. Talking about incentives and financial support, there's not so much that has been done there. What exactly has the state been able to put in place to support teachers within such regions? For instance, in the Navy, when people work for a period of time, they are being given opportunities to go on an educational leave. They are being supported to further their education, to go and take a course out there and all of that. What system has been put in place to ensure that more of our teachers have been given the opportunity to travel out and then see what the first world countries are doing in the educational sector? These are some of the systems that need to be put in place, right? We look for teachers who are doing well, find a way to have them go out of the nation to study. Schools in Australia, schools in the US, in the UK, schools in Finland, schools in Singapore. These are nations that are really doing well. If the nation, Nigeria, wants to really thrive in higher educational system, part of the things that must be put in place is the incentives and support for professional development of teachers, even outside the nation.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, we'll be going on a very short break now, and when we return, we'll be able to continue. Just stay tuned, because there are several questions I'll need to ask you with respect to how can the government get better or very good partnership with probably maybe some of these institutions, like the colleges of education, faculty of education in some of these federal universities and even state university, to see that yes, they can be able to cover up the gap that we are having. So let's go for this short break.
As a free state in 20th century Africa is the need to revive the stature of man in Africa and restore the dignity of man in the world. Nigerians believe passionately in the fundamental human rights. We regard all races of the human family as equal. Under no circumstance shall we accept the idea that the black race is inferior to any other race. I appeal to all our leaders, far and near, to forget the wounds which were inflicted in cause of our internecine altercation. The love of our country should outweigh the love of our petty selves. The enjoyment of individual freedom under the law should mean more to us than our self-centered party programs and manifestos. Common dangers and common enemies alert us on the need for common security. Come and join Abubakar with me, Sadauna, Awolowo, Akitola, Osarebe, Okpara, Ikoku, Aminu Kano, Ibrahim Imam, and Tata. Let us bind the nation's wound and let us heal the breaches of the past so that in forging our nation, there shall emerge on this continent a hate-free, fear-free, and greed-free people who shall be in the vanguard of a world task force whose assignment is not only to revive the stature of man in Africa, but to restore the dignity of man in the world.
Welcome back from that break, and stay with us is Mr. Johnson Banje, who is also a professional educator, telling us more about issues that are surrounding the shortages of teachers in the FCT. And with his expertise, he has been able to go around some of these communities and see where the holes lies. And how can we cover up with these particular challenges. He is also providing solution to some of these. So, Mr. Johnson, let me just quickly go to this. What role do you think, or what kind of partnership do you think the government will need to establish to see that, yes, most especially in our primary and secondary school, we don't have a situation whereby subjects don't have professional teachers. And every day we say that we have enough graduates in the country. If you go, we have colleges of education just behind us. Down to Zuba, you have the FC Zuba. But then if you go to some of these primary schools, you don't even see qualified teachers. Some of them are secondary school students teaching, or secondary school graduates teaching in primary school, or sometimes even secondary school. So what do you think the government will need to do to really see that, yes, we have competent teachers that are willing to teach in these schools?
Okay, thank you. I've been waiting all day for us to get to this aspect of our conversation, because I feel it's the high point to our discussion, because the solutions lie in what we'll be discussing going forward. First and foremost, government have to put up policies that should be engaged, that will support teachers in this field. The first thing that must be done will be the policies and the system of implementation of such policies. You see, when our medical doctors are going on strike and all of that, the nation come beckoning on them. But then you will see that when teachers are going on strike, or any of these universities, you can see how much of attention is being given to them. That schools can be on strike for 6 months, 8 months, sometimes even up to a year, and then nothing is really being done. Narrowing it down to our primary and secondary schools, part of the things that must be done is that policies must be put in place to improve the standard of living of teachers, especially when you have qualified and professional teachers. So what the system that has to put in place, what policy should be in place to improve the incentives, for instance, the financial incentives of teachers, has to be worked upon, such that there is a minimum amount a teacher should be paid. You see, I bet you say that there's no much difference between what the doctors are doing and what teachers are doing. The doctors are saving lives and the teachers are saving lives too, right? Transforming the life of a child is a great investment. So there should be a commensurate financial reward for our teachers. So we have to work on financial incentives. We have to work on housing incentives. If for instance, the government put up a structure, for instance, having teachers to probably have accommodation or housing support, housing allowances, and all of those things, you have more people pick interest, even people who are passionate. We have a lot of people who are passionate about teaching, but are not there in the field because they don't feel that the reward is much enough. They don't see the reward being enough for them to continue to take that route, right? So housing allowances, financial support, financial incentives, professional development programs that needs to be set up, deliberately set up, right, to ensure that people who are coming into the system must go through. So if we have such development programs put in place, you have people who are being categorized. In the US and in the UK, for instance, you can't just come in and apply for anything. You must be competent in such areas. Even when you say you are a science educator in the UK, you will still be vetted. You will still be seen in the classroom. You'll be assigned under a mentor for a period of 6 to 8 months before you begin to now take up learners to teach them. So what's wrong with we following these systems? Why are we not implementing these systems? So if anyone is coming to a particular system to take a subject, for instance, such individuals should undergo trainings and then mentorship for a period of time. You could have professional teachers in such sectors and in such areas too.
Okay, now if you go back to our local communities, where number one, it is even far further. If you go to some local area council, you discover that even the schools they have, you hardly find some of these teachers, because sometimes when you post teachers to some of these local area, they find it very, very difficult for them to get teachers. So what suggestion do you think you would have to, what suggestion, or will I say, you have to give to the government to see that, yes, in every local communities, they have the kind of competent teachers that they require in that particular community. Because taking somebody, for instance, if you are in Amak, for instance, and then you live in somewhere around Jiwa, and you have to go to Apo, for instance, to go and teach. Sometimes the distance also discourages some of these teachers. So how do you think we can have resident teachers in this local community who can teach them effectively?
Two things prominent. It works all the time. Number one, as we mentioned earlier, improve the standard of teaching, improve the incentive. If I know that you're paying me so well that even if I have to take an Uber right to and fro for an entire month, I still have something to take home with. I will not find distance as a barrier to go and teach no matter where I'm being posted in. So if the remuneration is good enough, people will not see distance as a barrier. But now we know that in the next couple of years, there's still a lot of work to be done before we have teachers being well paid, especially in our nation, even considering the standard of living of people. So what is the next best fit? The next thing I will suggest for the government to do is to go to these regions. There are people in those regions that are competent. We should begin to set up the train the trainee program in regions, in remote regions. So go to such regions, get young people in that area who are passionate about learning and improvement, and train them. Now, once they are built, they should begin to now train others and raise other children and other people within that region. So they have to be a train the training program set up in such regions, right? So if we begin to do that, we'll have teachers who are competent and they are domiciled in that area. Now, one of the other benefits you get from this is that you begin to find out that such regions will begin to develop because money is now coming to such regions. People in that community can now support their family and their family members and all of those things. And then you see that the standard of living in such areas will begin to improve. So individuals in such communities in remote regions should be trained. Individuals in remote communities should be supported so that they can now begin to grow their community and then help younger generations to grow and thrive.
Okay, let me quickly ask you this. Why is it important, or how important is it for teachers to have not just for them to have retraining in terms of, for those that have stayed long in the system? Definitely there are changes that will come in. A new method of teaching could be probably maybe the use of materials that they will need in the class, and then they need to get training. Do you think we have teachers who always get this particular training, that's going for workshop and the rest in our schools?
The answer is still no, right? Part of the things I advocate for some of the schools we speak with is for them to ensure that training programs are being done at least quarterly in their schools. And then it's just as you have said that there's improvement, there are updates going on even across the globe. And then for us to keep up with international standards, teachers have to constantly be equipped with the standards, the international standards of teaching, 21st century teaching methods, and updates to materials and all that is going on. So if training programs are not set up constantly, you will not have competent teachers who are thriving in that area. Later today in the evening, I'll be hosting a training for parents, teaching them about 21st century parenting strategies for their kids. Now, why is this needful? We have parents who they've been parenting for years. Their parents have even taught them how to be good parents. But why do we need an upgrade? You can see that the digital age is coming with renovations, is coming with new things. You can see
Mr.
that
Jesse, if you can just help us to, we're already out of time, just in 30 seconds, if you can just give us a closing on to this particular issue so that we can call it a day. Just in 30 seconds, please.
Okay, so going forward, policies set up by the government, government need to set up policies that will help our teachers to thrive, right? financial support should come in, training programs should be established to ensure that our teachers are constantly learning and improving. And then
thank you so
finally,
much,
we
Mr.
should
Justin
consider
Obanje,
going.
for joining us on the afternoon edition. Unfortunately, this is how far we can go. You have so much to say, but then the time is limited. And definitely, as we discussed in our last conversation, definitely there is always room for you to give us your wealth of ideas on issues that pertains to education in the FCT. This is how far we can go. My name is Isa Nu. Have a wonderful day.